Hello and welcome everybody back once again to the Team America Event 6. Today, we get ready to head over to Oulton Park in the GR86. It's a little bit of free iRacing content, so something these drivers are going to be very, very well equipped for. Now, before we get into tonight, I would like to take a little bit of a look back in the past on our previous event and all of the dramas and, well, potential downpours that had happened in the past. Stampede is here, the green flag is out, and the cars are roaring down to the first corner. It's a long way to the first braking zone as well, so the slipstream going to be playing a massive role, and you can see the clouds in the background already looming and showing their face. Down to the braking zone, Eric Halsban's going to get shifted out by Nathaniel Fryman, who took that inside line. A little contact at the corner. In the background, there's a big crash with Riley Mills spinning around. A great avoidance car, a great avoidance from, I think that was Troyer, Brian Troyer, I'm pretty sure who that was, managing to get out of the way. Lots of position changes early, Sauger, but it looks like the top three changing slightly. Move now to the inside potentially there, but looking further back, we have Jacob Magnowski as well as Gerson Herrera having their little scrap. It looks like he has the momentum, and that Ford absolutely cutting its way through the air. And again, time after time, he puts on a stellar defense, makes up ground. This time, I'm singing his praises, and he's going to slip through the rugs. In fact, it's going to be a double, in fact. Unfortunately for Lewis Holloway, he will not have that chance as he has found himself facing the wrong direction in the infield. He manages to get it facing the right way, back out onto the circuit. A massive clattering as Paul Nye and it looks like a back marker have come together. Mike Pico manages to give, I know that is Fryman. No, that's Nathaniel Fryman that he's made contact with. A battle of the ages and the two titans have clashed. Now through turn 14 and 15, we're on to the final corner, I should say. Through turn 14, we see the rain starting to glimpse the track.
Breedlove with a little bit of damage to that rear wing and possibly a tire to boot that's missing.
And tonight, he's going to be joining the winner's circle as he crosses the line first. Eric Halsban takes victory for Team America Talent Scout Event 5.
Jake Cummins coming back in P2 and Edwin Onofree rounding out the podium in third.
And that was a little glimpse of the past to what was, again, a little bit of a downpour session. And, well, as we get ready to introduce the night here as well, we might be seeing a little bit of prospects as well on the future. But before we get into that, let me introduce my co-partner here tonight. Alongside me is going to be none other than the Jackson Lambros. Jackson, we've just taken a little look back at our previous month's event. What do we have to make of it?
First big shakeup, I think, for a lot of these drivers in that we had the variable of the weather. But again, I was a big fan of that 50-50 split you guys saw, kind of starting it in the dry, letting it be that melee that we saw that Turn 1 at Road America and Elkhart Lake always tends to provide. But the minute the skies opened out, it's a battle of survival, keeping the car on the black stuff, on the tarmac, staying out of the wall. We saw a couple of guys struggle to really make that happen, but man, Eric Halsban riding high coming into this week as your TE5 race winner.
Yeah, one of the long-time Team America drivers as well, Eric Halsban, so seeing him up on the podium and seeing up at the top is always a welcome sight. Jake Cummins behind him and Edward Onofree putting up a great fight, and we saw a lot of adversity and trial through conflict, but not with other drivers necessarily, more with themselves in the wet conditions, especially towards the tail end of that race. But let's talk a little bit about tonight, shall we? As we get ready to dive on in, of course, we are going to be seeing the different types of cars, and of course we are going to be seeing the GR86, the car of choice tonight. Oulton Park island layout, a little different than the standard layout that you're used to for the international circuit. This is a 2.2 mile circuit that is going to have a couple less corners. The biggest standout is that we skip the Shell Oil corner and the Britain's chicane. The format here tonight is going to be two 20-minute races as well, so we'll be seeing these drivers out on track on multiple occasions, having to go for the gold. And Jackson, as we've seen before, especially in race 1, it can be a little more tame with drivers figuring each other out. But this being event 6 in Team America, a lot of these drivers know each other quite well, and we're going to be able to see, I think, in event 1, or excuse me, in race 1, these drivers may be going a little more crazy than we're used to.
I think especially when you add in the chaos that this island circuit tends to generate. Again, you don't have that full run up into Shell Oil's corner. So a lot of these guys, have a lot less time to think. They might get a little bit more ambitious with that move into that hairpin, which we've seen a little bit during practice earlier on, might be the main spot to overtake on track. Here in our producer, Tom, in our ear as well. I think wet weather maybe being a little bit of a factor as well in qualifying. So we're going to have to wait and see. But I think you said it best, Mike. A lot of guys developing relationships here on and off track for the Team America Talent Scout events. I got a feeling, though, once we get going, maybe not for race 1, but especially for race 2 with that flip grid, I don't think there's going to be any friends on track.
No, certainly not. At least, friends, on the time being in the Discord, it is going to be a little different. But I do want to take a moment here to mention who makes these events possible, and that, of course, being our title sponsor here tonight with Regadget. And you can see on your screen right now the Phoenix PC. It is an absolute beast. If you are in the market for a computer and looking to not spend a whole lot of money, yet still get a quality product, Regadget is the place. Typical budget's around $1,500 for the Phoenix bundle, and you can use code INIT to even get a little bit more of a discount off that. And on top of what Regadget does, you might say, why do they offer such cheap PCs? Well, Regadget, they will take your PC, if you have a old hunk of junk sitting in the corner, and they will refurbish it themselves, get it sent back out to somebody in need, that being, of course, a library, a school, or any sort of different really anyone that is in need of it. And again, if you want to get one yourself, you can scan that QR code, head on over to regadget.com/gaming or shop.regadget.com, and you can find all of these amazing deals. Now, also making these events possible here tonight is going to be, of course, everyone behind the scenes with our producer. Let's start off with him, Tom Bryant from AK Esports UK. On top of that, we, of course, are live on TV. Yes, indeed. Hello, Mom. Over on Roku on Esports Edge and of eClutch in the MENA region. A massive shout out as well, of course, to Regadget, and a massive shout out to iRacing for allowing us to use their platform to host these amazing events on. Now, though, Jackson, let's talk a little bit about this event tonight. The format being two 20-minute races, we kind of touched on this just briefly, but when it comes to the GR86, why don't we talk a little bit about that car? A 2.4-liter boxer engine producing about 220 horsepower. It's not necessarily the quickest car, about 0 to 60 in 3 to 5 business days, but this car offers some amazing racecraft.
Came into iRacing about 2.5 years ago as a lot of people considered it as an alternative to the MX-5 Cup. But with the aero, how much suspension travel, and frankly, the additional weight that the 86 has over the Mazda, a lot of people were considering it as, something that was completely unique. Yeah, it's the same lightweight FR platform, but you gotta lean on the aero. You've gotta really understand weight transfer. And with how, sensitive a lot of the aerodynamic bits are on the car, you certainly cannot lean on other people. And with wet weather being outside of the factor, well, just about now, I think these guys fortunately won't be having to move over to those continental wet weather compounds. And I think the game plan for us tonight going to be fully slick for the rest of the evening.
Yeah, and it will be a slick track, especially to start with, as these drivers do lay some rubber down and the big old hoovers push all the water off the circuit. We'll be seeing that dry line start to form, and then, of course, the overtaking then will come as a tow. I am looking forward to seeing this different layout. Of course, seeing the normal layout, the international, with the Shell Oil corner being a very good overtaking opportunity in general. We were talking a little bit behind the scenes before this race started, Jackson, and see, we skipped this corner right here on your screen, and we actually make that right turn a little bit earlier, and it's a 90-degree hairpin directly to the back, basically meaning there are going to be some dive bombs happening.
And you know what, Mike? I don't hate it. It's that quick flick to the left-hand side before you get on the brakes. And maybe this is just my experience doing 86 Cup here, but I've seen a couple people maybe chuck it in a little bit too hard or get on the anchors a little bit too quick. I've seen a couple guys get in sideways to Shell Oil, so it'll be a square braking zone. That'll be a great overtaking opportunity. Let's see how they line up for race number 1.
Now we see the grid has been finalized, and my goodness, was it close. Edward Onofre took pole position in the 199, a driver that we know has some good success in the Team America Championship. Justin Wilming, a new driver, joining us tonight, and just nearly a tenth off of the pace, less than the blink of an eye. Jesse Laverin, a very solid result as he's managing, of course, from Camber and Castor down in Southern California to come up into third position here for the 83. Bronson Turner, another driver that's had tremendous success recently in Team America, now into fourth position. Max Bowman coming home in fifth with Javier Sierra down in sixth. Lewis Holloway, another, of course, absolute crucial member here in Team America, has done nearly every single race, joining us down in seventh position. Morgan Stringer as well, another driver that's joined us in almost all, down in eighth position. Jason Willett down in ninth, and last but certainly not least on the grid here tonight is going to be Sean Roberts, uncharacteristically. So some potential overtakes in the future for the 333, I would imagine. But this grid here tonight, as I just kind of mentioned, Jackson, it's a lot of veterans out there.
For sure. Kind of surprised, especially with Wallet. We've seen him do a lot of sim racing at the top level, collegiate iRacing league veteran. We'll have to see what he can do. And then I believe we might have seen wrong tire allocation for Roberts, which is why he's at the tail end of the field. But definitely a small but seasoned field here for race number 1 tonight.
Absolutely. This is going to be an absolute thriller. Don't go anywhere, folks, of course, as we are going to be getting into this very, very shortly. The cars have gridded. We're on the outlap, and Jackson, are you seeing what I'm seeing on this? We have some mixed compounds joining the field.
So we're just at that crossover point, right? The rain has stopped, but there's still plenty of moisture on the racing surface, and we're just kind of at that crossover point. You see that a lot in sprint formats. So what do? Do you go for the grooves, or do you take that gamble and think it's dry on track? Watch Turner, Laverin, and Stringer. That'll go their way for the advantage as this race develops.
And here we go, the green flag ready to come out for Team America Event 6, and we're already going 3 wide, and look at the dry tires and the advantage that they might have here side by side for Wilmington and Turner, as it looks like Turner had the grip, lost it in the mid-corner, but kept it all the way through. Look at that in the background, as that's going to be Javier Sierra getting involved as well. Edward Onofre, he is walking away smiling right now. The wet tire choice, seemingly the good decision early, as Bronson Turner has been, well, meleeed out of position early at this point. Behind him, it's going to be Lewis Holloway, Roberts, Bowman, Stringer, Laverin, all scrapping for these positions and down into the shell oil. We're going to be going side by side. Sean Roberts making the move onto Holloway.
Like, that's already 5 positions in 3 corners for the 333, as he has taken advantage. He had that inside line where I think there was just a little bit more moisture on track and was able to absolutely swamp the guys on the dry compounds. You're seeing another here as we work through the first of the chicanes. Big opposite lock, and the 333 gonna swamp sides. And unfortunately, the boulder gonna roll back to the bottom of the hill here for Sean Roberts.
I wonder if this is just not able. What has gone on since we have gone through 1 corner? Okay, big developments now, as it looks like Jason Willett, Lewis Holloway involved with this one potentially. We're going to replay very shortly, as our producer is going to be frantically trying to find out exactly what just happened as we cut away. And all drama breaks out immediately. The results, though, looks like Max Bowman gaining some ground. Bronson Turner not really gaining much at this stage, but we're seeing, I think, at this point, who made the right call on the early stages. But Jackson, this is just early. We still have 20 minutes left. Oh, and it's already some bumping and banging going on up front.
Turner trying to get that launch out of the final corner. He's on the inside in that Camber and Castor colors. Some guys, I think, getting a really good line on exit, though. Got to be so careful with the pedals on the outside. We're still nearly 3 wide into turn number 1. That's going to be really expensive. Stringer, Wallet, and Bogman still going at it further back. That's going to allow Turner here in the 81 to really get a breakaway. Another big clump a little bit further back with Bogman, Holloway, and company. So again, everyone's still within striking distance, within passing range of one another. But a lot of guys still trying to find that optimum line wherever it's dry if you're on the racing slicks. And plenty of guys in the bottom half of the field trying to just, for lack of a better term, like drive the car by braille. Figure out where there's any grip on track that's going to favor the dry line, for now favor the racing slicks. It was a 50-50 split at the start. You already see Jesse Laverin go into the pits, actually switch from the slicks over to the wet compound. So you can clearly see where the advantage is out on track right now.
I don't think he's going to be the only driver to make that decision as well. We'll see, though, for the top ones as we get into this race. Of course, when the track dries up, that's going to essentially turn these wet tires into slicks. Now, it's not exactly what happened, but more on that in a bit. This is that collision that we were talking about. This is actually the tournament. This is Jason Willett that we're on board with right now. We can see the front end. That was the crash that we were a part of. That was Bonson Turner. So let's see. This is what we missed. Jason Willett loses the front end and unfortunately just collects. I think that's Jesse Laverin there in the camber and caster machine. And unfortunately for him, and I guess that was Holloway, excuse me, as well, that was involved. And so seeing the really an unfortunate slow motion crash at that, Jackson.
Yep, and again, when you're on these in these conditions on these compounds, it doesn't take too much in terms of contact for a spin there. So unfortunately, it really didn't look as bad as it actually was. It's just it only took one domino to really have that middle of the field explode. So you see us now 4 minutes and change in, but Morgan, Stringer, Turner, Holloway, Wallet, these guys have a lot of work to do to try and close that gap. At the sharp end of the field here, Onofre up and away 2 seconds and change over Wilming and company.
Yeah, very impressive lap times. Wilmingham managing though a 141.5 on the previous, for his best lap for Onofre being a 141.333. Javier Sierra a little bit further down, but 143s, 142 though for Sean Roberts. So definitely keep an eye on that. But when it comes to the dry runners, well, now let's hold that thought right now because Lewis Holloway is trying to use a little bit of that WD-40 on the front bumper to slip his way on by as he tries to battle with Jason Willett in the Team America car with that lovely In It logo on the front as well. Holloway in the feeling out process right now. And Jackson, this is always a frustrating one to be in, especially in these intermediate conditions where you have to pick your moves, but you have to pick them so carefully because one wrong step, and we've seen it before, it can end up with your race over quicker than a quick thing in Quicksville. And holy smokes, Jason Willett almost dancing his car out in the final corner.
Done some dirt racing before. He's used to getting in some opposite lock, but certainly didn't mean to do it there. This will open the door for Holloway on the inside in the 93. Oh, they'll lock horns here going into Lodge. Holloway going to try and hang it on the outside. Look at this phenomenal drag race out of the final corner. Still just barely, I think, Holloway out in front, or excuse me. What a phenomenal battle there. That's some ethical wheel in what's been a pretty explosive start to this race, but Mike, I don't think he's out of the woods yet.
No, this is coming up on the best overtaking opportunity, and I really thought that Lewis Holloway was going to have that move done and dusted before turn one, but it doesn't seem to be the case. We're side by side in the tight bits through the cascade. Now, on the way down to the hairpin, the momentum is in the favor currently of Jason Willett, but the brakes, we know how late you can go in these 86s. Not late enough, or was it too late for Jason Willett as he outbrakes himself? That's going to give the line now back to Lewis Holloway, as this is just a give and take battle, but who is going to be the one to take the position? Lewis Holloway side by side with the inside line. This is everything he's been working towards, and finally, maybe with enough effort, anything is possible. Lewis Holloway is going to find the position up into fifth.
Oh man, I was gritting my teeth that entire battle because I know how much of a tightrope walk it is off traction. That's exactly what caught these guys out earlier on, especially through Hislops, coming through Clay Hill. The minute you get these on remotely dry compounds, especially after these Continentals have been screaming to just cool off for a little bit, if you give it a little bit too much right foot, these things want to go around almost immediately. And talking to Nathan Dupuis, Garrett Maines, a couple of guys who have competed in the GR86 Cup in the real world, that is something that is very much reflected in the actual support series for GT America on their weekend. So, you know, rule number one of really, really driving these cars fast is understanding just how flexible they can be mid-corner when you're really trail braking and getting on the gas early. I think we're seeing that reflected here in the real world. That's troubles, I think, for Max Bogman in the 89. I think he might have gone off Mike a couple corners back.
Yeah, let's take a look at what exactly happened here. So this is Bowman into the chicane, a little bit too deep, and honestly not too much to look at on this one. Just a bit of an easy mistake to make, and he's back out on track with no issue. Oh, never mind. There is an issue.
No.
There is the issue there. Okay, that's a little bit worse than I expected, and he's now in the grass, but again, no contact. So just really dancing around on the tires. He's going to clean him up, back out on track. It's no harm, no foul, but it's certainly a lot of time lost. And speaking of time lost, we have well, Tom Bryant reading my mind pretty much, because I was about to talk about Jesse Laverin. He has climbed his way back to positions within 10 seconds pretty much. The fact the dry tires are not the correct tire right now, Jackson.
And again, the fact that we've only had a couple of cars on the dry tire and on the racing line means not a lot of guys are actually doing a lot of effort in getting the water off of the optimum racing line. So we might have to wait until Heat 2 for these, dry tires to really have the advantage. But going back to what we saw earlier with Bogman, it is an absolute tightrope walk. The minute you get on the curbing, it's already, what we hear in sim coaching is always, be careful on the right foot, as, oh, look at this, Laverin trying to make that move on Turner. We'll jump back on that point, Mike, because this is a great battle for P7.
Oh my gosh, as Laverin is literally pushing Turner through the corners. Every little bit of grip Turner is trying to get out of these tires, but there's almost none to be found. And oh, you have to be so careful if you're in Jesse's situation there. You don't want to be on the outside when Bronson starts to understeer. You want to be on the inside and make your move definitive. Exactly what we saw right there. Jesse Laverin up into 7th with ease. Unfortunate for Bronson Turner. This is going to be a race of what if, and especially heading into race 2, Jackson, we kind of had predicted that this would have dried up by now. We're 10 minutes into Heat 1, and we're not even seeing an assimilation of a dry line forming.
Very British summer weather, too, which means we're not getting that gas ball in the sky to do any help as well in getting that water off of the racing surface. But, man, that was a really good move from Laverin. You look back a couple sectors. The minute you get out of water tower, it's fast, it's narrow, it's single groove. You don't really have a proper overtaking spot until you get to Lodge Corner. So Jesse Laverin in the 83 still trying to battle his way back to the front.
And I guess one of the things I can kind of prove myself wrong with here as we take a look at those lap times up in the top, and oh goodness, Jesse Laverin, get on the brakes.
Oh, no.
All right. A little bit of a mistake there as Jesse has overcooked himself in the chicane or in the hairpin. He'll be back, I'm assuming, on Bronson Turner fairly quick. But as I was just saying, Edward Onofre just put in his fastest lap. So despite the fact that the track does not look like it's drying up, it is getting a little bit quicker. Or Edward Onofre is just built a little bit different. It could be a combination of the two as well. But right now, Justin Wilmings is, I don't want to say nowhere to be seen, but he's about 4 seconds to the good right now of Edward Onofre. It's pretty much cruise up at the top right now for the 199. This is going to be that move again for Jesse. I don't think this is going to be too much of a fight, but it's really interesting to see what Justin Wilming is going to be able to do in the next race as well. Will he be able to get that pace up to Edward Onofre? Because he's not that far behind. He's only about 3 to 5 tenths on average slower per lap. He's just got to find that little extra pace. And those dry conditions might make the difference.
I think as well, when you start on the front row and you have really good single car or single lap pace without dirty air being a factor, you're just able to run away with it like we're seeing right now over Wilming. But when you're, at the tail end of the field, you've got, in this case, 9 other guys that are going to make you really, really work for it. And we've seen it already. It's Lakeside Hairpin, it's maybe Hissalops, and then Lodge Corner. You've got 3 realistic spots on track, and we've seen really good wheel-to-wheel racing. But, Mike, as this track dries up, it's going to grip in, it's going to speed up. You're going to get less opportunities because everything's going to happen a lot quicker on track. So definitely something to look out for. Edwin Onofre looking to be a lock in here for Heat 1, but he's really going to have to work for it, I think, even to get on the podium for race 2.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And, I want to take a look a little further, like talking about Bronson Turner, for example, and with the decisions that some of these drivers have made with dry tires. I almost think it would have been better to do what Jesse did and pit early. I mean, he kind of already proved it. He made up a pit stop in pace alone. And Bronson on those dry tires, at this point, even if the track does dry out like we were just talking about, I don't think it's going to dry out enough to heat the tires back up, because at this point, the track is so cold and that rubber is going to be basically it's going to be as hard of a rock, essentially. And getting that temperature back into those tires is going to be nil impossible, I think, unfortunately, for the dry runners. But the wet runners seem to be running quite well still, as again, lap times piling in. Previous lap, though, from Edward Onofre, a 1:42.6. So maybe those tires getting a little more cooked than we think.
And Mike, I can't pull a Parker Kligerman and touch the ground for you and tell you how damp it is, but just giving it the eyeball test right now, you can see parts of that racing surface get a little bit darker. Oh my goodness. Justin Wilming, I think, further back, going full oppo. That was a lap car, I believe, Morgan Stringer or Max Bogman maybe. So these guys still proving on track that there's certainly a little bit of dampness out there, but you can see those darker areas on the racetrack. Single groove racing line definitely forming.
In Jackson, I'll be honest, these are some of the worst conditions to drive, at least for myself personally. I love driving in the wet weather. I love driving in the dry weather. However, when you have these mixed conditions of, well, this one corner on the final corner is a little bit drier than the first corner, which is a little bit wetter than this other corner, it becomes a almost game of chess at, well, about 150 miles an hour in these Toyota GR86s. This is the replay of the onboard shot of Bowman. Let's take a look at the structural fortitude of his racing trousers afterwards. I'm certainly curious, because my goodness, he was milking the cow to keep that thing on track.
Quarter of a second later and that thing would have been in the wall. That's the cat-like reflexes you have to have in a production-based road car that's got such a short wheelbase. But man, what a phenomenal save. Able to keep it going and will continue to battle.
Right now, Sean Roberts, a driver we haven't mentioned that much, currently sitting down in 4th position, but his lap times at the moment are matching the leader, Edward Onofre. Now, he needs to find a little more pace to catch, as pretty much everybody seems to have settled into those 142s. As I say that, we have a 141.3 from Edward Onofre, so he has gotten the hurry up on immediately. It's going to be tough to get that man down, unfortunately, for these other drivers. You can see as well, Sean Roberts, biggest gainer throughout the entire field, so he managed to maximize his pace early as he started in the back of the grid with a potential qualifying result, or qualifying mistake. We're not exactly sure what allowed it to happen, but either way, he has climbed his way back up through the field, and battles happening at the bottom. It looks like Morgan Stringer and Max Bowman.
See a purple lap for Jesse Laverin? I think I might have. You're still seeing a little bit of a rooster tail being developed right now. You can slowly but surely see that advantage. Oh, Morgan Stringer going opposite luck. You got to be so careful on the curbs here, Mike. The minute you give it gas on the painted curbs, there is no traction there. That's actually how we saw a couple spin earlier on. I think both Holloway and Wallet in his laps is when we saw that first big multi-car collection with about 2.5 minutes in. But even in normal dry conditions, what we learn normally is you got to be so careful on throttle using those runoff curbs on exit. And when it's still even in this kind of scenario where it's intermediate conditions, you got to treat it like a tightrope.
Wilming's out? What has happened here? It's a little, okay. We're having,
for Justin Wilming.
Hopefully it doesn't persist and we can keep him out on the circuit. No, I have to agree, Jackson. It's going to be really interesting to see how this develops right now. And I want to talk about this purple lap from Jesse Laverin, because this is something I didn't have on my bingo card, and credit where credit is due. Jesse, if he can manage this in race 2, let's keep in mind he qualified in 3rd position at the beginning of this race. The pace is absolutely there for him, and Jesse has been on a upward trend pretty much every race in terms of positions. Is there a podium in his future? I certainly hope so. Jesse Laverin, I'm keeping an eye out on him.
It's almost going to be praying that the weather's going to stay this way, because he did that in these wet conditions on the wet compounds. But regardless, we'll have to wait and see, because I'm still not sure in the next 2.5 minutes if we're going to do enough to really justify everyone being fully on dries. You're still seeing the tire split on your screen right now. I would still love to see what we're looking like for lap times for the guys on the dry compounds. You know, looking at where we're going to be forecasting this, Mike, I think maybe it's halfway through halfway through race 2, maybe we get to that conversation. But as it stands right now, I think it's going to be smarter for these guys to start the second race on the wets.
I'm gonna have to agree with you, actually. I think it doesn't seem like this track is drying at all. And we do have that dry line forming, you can see in some corners, but there are still puddles through the outsides. And you mentioned those slippery curbs. I don't think these drivers want to take the risk of even testing the metal on those curbs with a dry tire, because that is going to send you around very fast, as we've talked about. I won't go into that too deep, but either way, Jesse Laverin here, he's found himself another free position, as unfortunately an update on Justin Wilmings, it seems like that has been a disconnect for him. So hopefully we can get him back in the server for race 2. But what was going to be a P2 result, unfortunately now to the bottom of the grid for him.
So if you're Onofre or Laverin, you're hoping it's going to be wet. If you're the remainder of the field who, did the practice this week on dry conditions, I think you're going to be hoping that it at least gets a little bit more dry for race number 2. And Onofre with another flyer, 143 even, puts him even faster than Laverin once again. But you look at where Javier Sierra, Sean Roberts are at, they're kind of thinking smarter of it. I think they know that they obviously didn't have the pace to really bring the fight to Onofre, and they're trying to limp it home. But Mike, we've had a lot of dominant drives at this point as Morgan Stringer now goes for an off-road excursion. Mike, what a drive it's been, though, for Eddie Onofre.
Absolutely. No, credit where credit is due. And we can talk about, again, some of his previous results that he's had with Team America, as ever since he has joined, he got off to an absolute valiant start. Last round in the Road America GT3s, he was, in fact, our podium sitter. Now, he didn't necessarily win that race. He did finish in 3rd position, but he finished on the top in qualifying. This, by the way, this is Morgan Stringer. And what happened to him on this occasion? Unfortunately, you hate to add that qualifier at the end, as this has been a rough day for the driver that has been with us for so many races. And around he goes through really no fault of his own, Jackson. Again, just slightly too much right foot.
Dry compound and differential really wants that car to rotate. So, you look at how many of these guys are so careful on exit and not putting it down until it's a completely flat steering wheel. But Onofre out of the final corner.
Yes, indeed. Edward Onofre, your Team America Event 6, Race 1 winner, as he crosses the line first by a significant margin over Javier Sierra, 17 seconds. Sean Roberts going to be coming home behind him in 3rd, and not too far away either will be Lewis Holloway. A great result for the Camber and Caster driver, as that might be his best result of Team America, if I'm not mistaken. So. And that is exactly what we love to see. Again, seeing these drivers time after time getting better every single time is what we're about here for the Team America Championships, and really just all sim racing championships in general. It's about getting better and finding those friends along the way. And look at that. Across the line goes Sean Roberts, and a few drivers behind. Bronson Turner already hit the line, as unfortunately he was a lap down along with all of the other dry runners, as the wrong compound was picked for a few.
Still a great drive from Sean Roberts. 7 positions gained. But you look at guys who we're going to have to keep an eye out for race number 2. This is one of them, as he is still, despite a couple of mistakes, putting in flyer after flyer. It'll be a P6 as it stands for Laverin, the Cameron Caster machine. But again, you look at a lot of guys, obviously Javier Sierra, consistent in P2. Lewis Holloway able to snag a couple and stay there for P4. But for Laverin, Bronson Turner, Max Bogman, Morgan Stringer and company, they've got their work cut out for them. The good news, though, Mike, they're going to be towards the front for race number 2.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, of course, the finishing results of race 1 are going to be the starting results of race 2. And a little update as well, folks, if you are watching on Esports Edge right now, first off, welcome. We appreciate you. We are going to be taking a brief little break here in a minute, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back in about 2 minutes. But for everybody else that is watching on all the other platforms, we'll be here the whole time. So let's talk about the breakdown here. And we talked a lot about Jesse Laverin, Jackson, and I think there's a good reason. Now, he finished, if you look at everything on paper, it wasn't that good, to be honest, for Jesse. He lost 3 positions. He qualified quite well, so that's definitely a benefit. But in terms of the early collision or early spin that he had back into the pit lane and changing those tire compounds really put a hindrance on his entire race. But regardless, with all that being said, he still managed to overtake all of the drivers on dries and climb his way over Bronson Turner up into 6th. So it was a good drive nonetheless for Jesse Laverin.
Still for sure something he's going to be kicking himself over what could have, should have been in isolating those incidents, right? Making sure that if he does end up in the wall, it's not his fault. But regardless, still, as you mentioned, Mike, phenomenal drive for the guy in the 83. And we'll be starting around mid-pack, just where he ended here, but maybe a little bit further towards the front. So, again, still someone we're absolutely going to have to look for here in race 2.
Certainly will, and with the pace that he's shown and the pace that other drivers, Sean Roberts, another one again. So we haven't talked about Sean much, but I got to give credit where credit's due. That was an incredible drive from Sean. He managed to plug away at the pretty much every single opportunity that was meant for him. He made it work. That didn't make much sense. Let's rephrase that. Sean Roberts again. He made some moves. He managed to get it up into 3rd, and then he just held it from there. There was no real struggles. There was no real doubts. His car control was phenomenal. And Javier Sierra has a lot ahead of him with Edward Onofre in 1st. And talking about Edward Onofre, we can mention the fact that he is the highest I rating driver in the server by a decent margin, actually. He's at 6,000 I rating, Javier Sierra around the 3,000 mark, and a few other most drivers sitting around that 3,000 mark as well. And we can also now take a moment to talk about the official, unofficial race results for race 1. This is your Team America round 6 in the Toyota GR86s at Oulton Park. Heat 1 results. Edward Onofre in the 199 is your race winner. Behind him, Javier Sierra took home 2nd, 17 seconds behind. A dominant victory for Onofre. Roberts down in the 3rd position with Lewis Holloway down in 4th. Jason Willett, 5th position with Jesse Laverin in 6th. Bronson Turner coming home in 7th with Max Bowman in 8th. Morgan Stringer rounding out 9th, and last but certainly not least, Justin Wilming with a unfortunate disconnect, and hopefully we will get to see him back in the race. He was in chat saying some packet loss, so I do expect him to be back and ready to roll.
Definitely a 50-50 split there on the wet versus dry compounds, and what we thought was going to be a little bit more of a crossover was definitely more of a wet-dependent race. The question that's going to be on our mind: 1, what's the track going to be looking like? What's the stronger tire looking to be? But crucially, for the first time, we're going to have to watch Edward Onofre pass some cars. How many can he pass from the tail of the field? Can he get himself back to the front?
That is the question. Now, let's take a moment to talk about some of the other championships that we run here at Init Esports, and this is going to be our all-women's championship. We are getting ready to round out our 6-month calendar, just like we are here with Team America, as we head over to Oulton Park for the GP layout. It is going to be in the FF1600s, the Ray FF1600s, all free content, all on iRacing, and again, that's our all women's championship. You can scan that QR code, head on over to initesports.gg or screentospeed.com. You can find the signups for this as well. And on top of that, of course, we have our next season of Screen to Speed that's going to be coming out. It's a 4-round championship with the GR86 and the Formula V and 1 overall. We also have our 2026 NASCAR series that is out, and this is the first time that anybody is laying eyes on this publicly, so take it in with glory. We get ready to host an official NASCAR truck league. We have Daytona on August 1st. It's a 100 lap. We are going to be mimicking the race calendar of the actual truck series. So seeing Daytona up, that's going to be the first one. That's going to be exciting as well. Charlotte's going to have at least 3 pit stops with 167 laps on August 15th. Indianapolis, we all know it. We all love it. Bristol, Texas, Iowa, Glen, every track out here. We have ovals, we have non-ovals. This is going to be an exciting league. Signups are going to be available coming up very shortly. If you are interested, you can go over to initesports.gg, or you can head on over to our Discord, where you can find all of the information when that is posted. It is going to be absolutely thrilling, Jackson. I have to say, we've seen the Talladega race just recently, and that was thrilling. Again, nearly over 15 drivers. It was awesome, and we get to see just such close pack racing the entire time.
You've got a good mix as well in, what you guys are trying to do, mimic the back half of the truck series schedule. You've got your super speedways, you got your drafting tracks. We've even got a road course in there in the forms of Watkins Glen. So a little bit of something for everybody. Might have to boot up the PC once again, get behind the wheel, see if I can do a couple starts. But definitely one of the cooler things we've done here for In It. Cannot wait to see that season get underway.
And on top of that, we get ready to build up here for tonight. Again, this is going to be the second race of 2. So we've had race 1. It is done and dusted. Race 2 is on the horizon. And of course, the results of the previous race are going to determine the grid of this one. So starting us off will be Edward Onofre, Javier Sierra, Sean Roberts, and so on and so forth. We'll be getting into that more shortly, but we should talk about this track a little bit, as I don't think I've mentioned that too much. As I did mention, of course, this is a 2.2 mile circuit, or 3.6 kilometers, depending on where you're at in the world. In this current layout from roughly around the 70s, as of course it was founded back in 1953 with a significantly different layout. I guess in the 50s they added on the back bit before, of course, it was called the Shell Oil Corner, and then finishing the track off pretty much the same to this date. Used to be a Formula One track, not anymore, not even close anymore, but goodness, does this track provide some good racing.
Started its life like all great British tracks in that it was a combination of some kind of lord's house, I believe, and then became a military establishment during the Second World War, but has had a handful of evolutions over the past couple of years. The most recent we're going off of here was first done in 2003. But man, you talk about a classic British track, right? Tight, technical, using everything, connected to the track as much as possible and using the terrain to its advantage. But how fitting is it, Mike, that the day after the 4th of July on America's 250th, we send the best in America over to one of the most iconic tracks in the UK?
I didn't think about that when I made this calendar 6 months ago, but that is absolutely hilarious. I have to agree. Either way, the family that you're talking about, by the way, you're absolutely right. It was the Oulton Hall founded by the Egerton family. So that was it did catch on fire in the early 20s. And then, of course, in the 30s, it got turned into a tank base, I think. It was a RAF. No, this was a RAF bombing club, I think, or RAF bombing base. It was one of them. Tanks or bombers, one of the two. It was used, of course, during the war, and then after the war, they said, what better thing to do with a runway than turn it into a racetrack? As that is, I will say, the UK does that right.
Our producer, Tom Bryant, foaming at the mouth right now for us to fail on the deliverance of this information.
Close enough.
Still,
either way, located. Hey, at least we can pronounce it. Track. We can pronounce the place it's located in. It's in Cheshire. I mean, it's in Cheshire. Come on. No, it's in Cheshire. I'm just playing with everybody. No. Either way, let's get into it. That's enough babbling here for tonight. The cars are gridded and they're getting ready to get out there. Let's talk about the racing that we're about to see. Full out lap here tonight, so they are going to be going all the way around this 2.2 mile circuit and following. It's a half out lap, actually. Excuse me. We're already halfway through into the back bits of Druid. So the safety car, the BMW M2 safety car, leading the field away, and it will be taken over very shortly. Edward Onofre on pole position. Every driver, Jackson, on dries this time. That makes our job a little simpler.
And it definitely means that that's not really something these guys have to worry about, regardless of allocation. These guys don't need to think about coming to pit lane. If they made the right decision, they can only focus on the wheel-to-wheel racing. Eddie clearly did his homework, but now all of a sudden maybe a major advantage for that plaid car out the window. For Javier Sierra, for Sean Roberts, for Holloway and company, we'll have to wait and see.
Let's see if we can turn plaid into gold. Edward Onofre going to be leading us away as the green flag flies for Team America Event 6, Race 2. Immediately, Edward Onofre off to an incredible start, but that's Javier Sierra getting his nose thrown to the outside immediately. He's going to get stuck in side by side down to Cascades. Behind that, Sean Roberts with Lewis Holloway on his tail. It's side by side for Willett and Turner as well. At the moment, Edward Onofre taking the lead over Javier Sierra, but that slipstream is going to come into the roll now as we get to head down to the 180-degree hairpin. A great defense, though. from our leader as Javier Sierra covers the inside. Is he going to be able to force the other car out? Yes, he is. Excuse me, Onofre, leading the field. Javier Sierra continuing the battle, Jackson, as they go down to the next corner.
This is exactly what you need to do, Mike. If you know you've got a front-running car, put the pressure on the guy that led the vast majority of race number 1, and knowing where you can find grip. That's exactly what Onofre has been able to do. You saw it through turn 2, going onto the high line, where there was still just a little bit extra grip on this drying track. That was how he was able to carry that speed and hold the lead for the time being. But as it stands right now, we thought it might have been a breakaway once again for Onofre. Sierra, Roberts, Holloway still right there.
Clearly, the wet conditions favoring Edwin Onofre over all the other drivers because this is even. Morgan Stringer, by the way, in the back of the field, something has happened to him as he is going to have to return back to the pit lane with a meatball flag. The battling, though, still on. Sean Roberts, what has happened up in the front as he's taken the position with Lewis Holloway now side by side. That's Javier Sierra, who's made a mistake. He's dropped down the order and plummeted, in fact, like a rock in the Marianas Trench down to 5th as he's now in the mix as well as, oh my goodness. That was Sean Roberts and Lewis Holloway having a near scare as they go down Cascades. Now, Lewis Holloway, we talked about he had the best result of Team America in the previous race. He's looking to make it even better.
Brilliant racing, but this is expensive from P2 on back. It's expensive. It's costing all this delta on track for everyone to try and make these moves. That's Holloway offline massively as Turner, Roberts, and Sierra go on through. Turner going to be the best of the rest right now, but if these guys want any chance to close that gap to Onofre, who's already put a second and nearly a half on this field, Sierra, Holloway, who are still going side by side into his laps, they're going to need to coexist if they want to catch the leader here, Mike.
I think that's what Lewis Holloway was doing in the hairpin. I think he tried to just let Sierra through, but unfortunately he lost 3 positions as a result. It wasn't the best opportunity to allow them through, but regardless, now he's down 1 position from where he started into 5th, but still running quite well. Jesse Laverin under attack now with Justin Wilmings. He was previously in 2nd. Justin Wilmings suffering a disconnect in race 1, but we know he has the pace. Jesse, though, another driver that has tremendous pace. So 2 Titans going at it, and as it stands, it is going to be Wilmings getting by. I don't think Jesse wants to fight that too much. As you mentioned before, Jackson, I think the working together strategy is the better option, especially for drivers like Wilmings and Laverne. But as it stands, Jackson, we're starting to see the lap times roll in. 133s, much more refreshing than the 40s that we were used to in the previous.
Yeah, certainly a dry track, and I thought that was maybe going to hurt the on-track product in terms of the wheel-to-wheel racing. Certainly not the case right now as Wilming and Laverin still going at it. I think there was maybe an idea of coexisting on track, maybe working together to tag team the bottom half of this field, but they're still trying to decide who's the faster one and who's going to lead the pair as they head into the lakeside corner. Again, straight braking zone, get to be a lot less careful as we see another move here. This will be Bronson Turner, I believe, looking to the inside. This is in his lot. All the way just a little bit further back, ready to pick up the scraps if any of them go offline. El Conga line out once again. What a phenomenal drive for Sean Roberts. P2 on the day. 4 positions gained, Mike, for Bronson Turner.
Yeah, doing an incredible job. And unfortunately, the man that we're riding on board with here down 2 positions, but still in the mix. Battling for the 3rd spot, or battling for the podium, really, down for 2nd. But what all this is doing is allowing Edwin Onofre to walk away, and Javier Sierra is seeing his prospect of winning this race slip further and further and further away every single second. I will say, it seems like Turner is not too aggressive on Roberts, but I'm pretty sure Roberts is going to be feeling the pressure very, very quickly as immediately there. You can see him diving every which way to make the move. The inside, though, is covered, and a great little defense there put up by Sean Roberts is going to force Bronson Turner into a different corner, but here we go. Down to Cascades. This is not the best opportunity. You don't really want to be going side by side here, but when you have no choice, you have to make it work. Sierra just got a 2-for-1 special in the blink of an eye. I don't know how he managed to do that. We got to take a replay of that. That was incredible. Roberts still in the mix, side by side, rubbing doors with Turner as they push themselves through the hairpin, clatter at the apex as he gets a punch to the face, does Bronson, and Javier Sierra is going to drop down the order. Turner going to be the one that wins out in this current battle, but it looks like Javier Sierra might have some big damage on the front of that car.
He was given the door just a couple laps ago. We saw him do some lawn work out of the final corner, and I think he wanted to race him back just the same way. Look at this. Trying to go on the inside. This is through turn number 2. There is GastroTurf on the outside, so there is a little bit of grip after the curbs, but certainly not too much. But all three of them going offline is what immediately initiated that conversation. Turner and Sierra trying to put that pressure a little bit further back. You had that car just trying to find a way through. Just dip that back left Continental off the racing line, and the rest is history.
And that looked, yeah, very big damage, unfortunately, despite the fact that it was a fairly minor hit. He is back out on track and still with decent pace, down in 8th position right now for Javier Sierra, ahead of Willett and Stringer. This battle just developing. Bowman and Holloway is now Holloway, who is Mr. Nice Guy in this race, I will say, again, giving away 3 positions for free at one point. Oh, is he almost is going to be giving away his car to a barrier. That wet corner, or the little puddle on the inside, very dangerous, flirting with disaster, Lewis Holloway is. Max Bowman might be smelling a little bit of blood in the water as a result.
Split-second move to try and save that corner, because you're constantly skidding to the outside in that corner with the way the camera is. But fortunately, yeah, Max Bogman able to save it. That's maybe the 3rd save he's had tonight. You remember race number 1 in the wet was full opposite lock a handful of times, never fully swapped ends behind the wheel of that car, and was able to keep it rolling the entire time. But definitely not the way his night, I'd argue, would have been on plan for him. But regardless, still halfway through, 3 positions gained on the night. Wilming up a pair as well. I think crucially on track right now, we're starting to see a little bit of a breakaway, if you will. Justin Wilming trying to put that pressure on Bogman and company a little bit further up. He's broken away from his earlier on battle buddy in the form of Jesse Laverin. But for Javier Sierra, after that mistake, he's trying to recover and get back to the top half of the field.
And this has been a frustrating one for some drivers here tonight. I think Jesse Laverin being one of those drivers. We kind of hyped him up pretty big in the lead up to this race, and he hasn't quite delivered yet. Sorry, Jesse, I don't mean to be rude, but right now down in 7th position. He does have Javier Sierra, excuse me, has the fastest lap below him, a 1:33.0. He is absolutely cooking right now. The only driver really in that wheelhouse, other than Edwin Onfrey, is going to be Sean Roberts. He's lapping in the 33.6s. We see a lot of 34s from pretty much all the rest of the drivers in the 34s. This is Javier Sierra, though, under pressure Jesse Laverin under pressure, as Javier Sierra is not going to waste any more time. He wants to get by, and he wants to get by now. The hairpin wasn't the chance. Now, is he going to make it into the chicane? The inside will turn to the out for Jesse. Let's see if he can hold on for long enough. Javier Sierra.
That's incredible.
Makes that look like taking candy from a baby. My goodness, what a move.
And the entire time that battle happened, on paper, that was not in Sierra's advantage. Had to go the long way around through the hairpin, and definitely, you know, going into his laps, it's almost always the guy that's on the inside that's able to run away with it. But you look at the way that Sierra's been running this race. Whenever he finds another guy on track, he is able to find grip, seemingly in places nowhere else is. So that 79 on paper in a vacuum in terms of pace is absolutely dialed in.
I have to agree. And, you know, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but just the difference in the suspension with this GR86 compared to the MX-5. You might say, Mike, why are you bringing this up right now? Well, just bear with me. As we've seen from some of these drivers, I was talking with Isabella Roberto back at PRI in Indy, and she was mentioning the fact that when you load these cars up in terms of turning into a corner, you can almost just chuck these things into a corner. You turn the wheel up, not as hard as you can, but you are throwing these cars into the corner to load everything up. And I think what we're seeing is really just Justin Wilmings doing that just a little bit better. And also Javier Sierra, again, some of these drivers are just able to load that suspension up in the mid corner a little better than, for example, Jesse Laverin. And I think that's the result there and why we saw that overtake.
For some of the corners, you have that camber as well, or the what am I trying to say? Banking in the corner. And again, as you mentioned, Mike, these cars are very chuckable into corners, so it's not as punishing to send it offline. So if you have someone who's taken the optimal racing line, who's maybe going a little bit slower, you can try and go the high line, especially into the slower speed corners, and make something stick. And I think that's what we saw with Sierra.
Yeah, I agree. And right now, I think we're going to see it again with Sierra as he's gaining and gaining. His lap times are looking very, very good. Still with the fastest lap, a 134.6 on his previous compared to the 134.3. That was mainly due to the fact that he had to make an overtake. So still nearly lapping at the fastest pace. But as we say that, Edwin Onofre says, well, actually, I'm in the 32s now. 132.9. Absolutely ballistic pace from our race leader.
Yep, and again, you had to put that pressure on early, but second back to about fifth here with Bogman just decided to settle it themselves for P2. And the doghouse that you're still seeing develop is a major part for why Onofre has been able to run away with it. But I think even if we had, one or two cars able to make that move stick, very good chance Onofre still by now would have been back in the lead. Regardless, we've had this battle now with Holloway and Bogman and Wilming. You've got Sierra and Lavrin coming in. This could very quickly become a 5-car battle. Bogman wants to make this move for P4.
But this is the line that we were looking for. That is what Jesse Lavrin was trying to do, but unfortunately couldn't make it work. Lewis Holloway here, again, a great drive. He finished P4 in the previous race, and he's looking to do this again. There's 8 minutes left. Now the pressure, though, is on. And Lewis, we've seen in the past, he can be one that's a little vulnerable to extreme pressure. So I'm very curious if Holloway is going to be able to dial this one and hold it off. And this is, I think, a great little segue to talk about exactly what we're looking for at Team America, and this is part of it. It's drivers going through adversity. Hold that thought, as immediately Bowman is going to steal the words out of my mouth and try to make a move. Wilmings gets by Max Bowman, but it's not done yet. The inside line now in the favor, though, of Bowman, but it looks like
here we go.
He lifted, and what is going on the outside? A big squeeze as Javier Sierra is going to clatter into Wilmings and send him into the barrier. No, never how you wanted that to end. Wilmings, a disconnect in race one, a great drive both races, but calamity strikes. And unfortunately, I think there's only one way to look at that one. We will take a look at the replay, of course, before making any judgments, but that was very, very unnecessary and unfortunate.
You run single file for so long, and then the moment you see a handful of cars go offline, you want to make a move stick. You're seeing it again right now. Sean Roberts trying to go to the outside for Turner. This is for second place. Hislop has really surprised us in just how much of a spot on track it is, become a hot spot for overtakes. But I think Turner maybe saw a little bit of battles further behind and trying to keep that 8-6 as wide as possible.
We do have a replay, by the way, of this incident. So let's take a look at it here. It's a lot to break down, and it happens very, very quickly. So Javier Sierra just coming onto the inside there. You can see he gives enough room to the inside, Wilmingham on the outside, of course. And we'll see as we get to the first corner where everything unfolds. So here comes Sierra forcing his way into a corner. And again, really... I don't think much needs to be said on that one.
I mean, that was Wilming definitely getting a little bit ambitious with the move in the final corner, but yeah, you talk about how perked up Sierra was the minute that happened. I think it was just play stupid games, win stupid prizes case for both drivers. This is turn 2. Roberts looking to the inside once again for Turner. Just trying to get a little bit of overlap. Turner off a little bit into the grass. We've seen a couple drivers make the high line work. Into the lakeside hairpin. Can it work for Roberts? It's got to start with being late on the brakes. Maybe a crossover here into his lap. Can't make it stick.
Not on this occasion. Behind that, Bowman just got an overtake on Holloway. We missed it, unfortunately. We might have to take a look at that now. Though, Roberts, let's see what he can do under pressure as he puts on the attack. Turner, again, uncrackable at this point, it seems. Doing such a good job with car control on a lot of these drivers. Roberts, another one of them. Currently, though, Bronson Turner up 5 positions from where he started. It's been a great day for him. Let's go on board with Max Bowman, by the way. This is the replay of the incident, or the overtake that we missed. So let's see as we go through the hairpin, and well, that is a trivial move, and Lewis Holloway making the same mistake twice, really, at that, and that was the same move that he did earlier, runs it deep and allows a car through.
Some cases, it's just feeling the pressure. The guy behind looking at the top of your screen and seeing a Toyota badge fill in the mirrors. As a little bit further back, Jesse Laverin, Lewis Holloway. So another battle starting to develop here, and I think that was maybe just a move stuck by Sierra.
Looks to be the case. Now, Lewis Holloway, can he come back? Or is this going to be the way it is? There's a little bit of a twitch from Sierra. Is this the move that Holloway needs? A big squeeze, though. As we go through Cascades, there is no love lost between these two. A slowdown penalty up ahead from Bowman, as it looks like he cut the track. Is now that going to be a third contender in this battle? As of right now, 0.6 is the gap. Sierra, not too concerned about what's behind him, I would imagine. At least he shouldn't be, but Holloway is trying to make that be the reality. But now we have Bowman in this conversation as well.
He only got 230-something horsepower. The draft really comes into effect, especially with that massive deck wing on the trunk. So Sierra getting a really good run there out of the lakeside hairpin. Unfortunately, Bogman able to fire himself out of his laps will make that P5 stick for at least a couple more corners. But Sierra has looked very, very fast, especially in this part of the racetrack. He's maybe looking for a move, selling a dummy, it looked like, at the top of the hill. This has been a big overtaking spot here, though. Into turn number 11. Move again here as Sean Roberts tries to go the long way around through Lodge. There's grip on the outside, but he still has to settle for P3. Frustrating drive for Sean Roberts. Behind this, though, I want to talk about this team element that's now going to be coming into play. Something that we don't get to talk about too much other than the Thays boys that join us from time to time. We have the Camber and Caster team. Well, again, hold that thought. Now we go side by side through Cascades. Sean Roberts, he is looking at every opportunity possible to make a move. Turner, can he hold on? I think he can. Again, he's now has the inside line. He's done this once. He's done this twice. This is almost every lap at this point for the young Bronson Turner. Sean Roberts not able to get by, and I think this is where a lot of these drivers, Jackson, they start to see that red mist kind of coming in their eyes. We have 2 minutes left in this race, and we know if you're Sean Roberts, you have the pace. Now, Bronson Turner obviously doesn't want to let this go, but I suspect this last lap is going to be potentially a little bit fun. John's overdriving, missed the apex there coming into the Hislop hairpin. So clearly feeling the pressure right now, knows he has the pace, but just cannot make that move. Turner's kept that car as wide as possible, and the 333 behind, I think, is finally starting to let those frustrations marinate out on track. Further back, I'm curious how Sierra got around Bogman, but basically from last to fourth now, the gray and blue driver, that was in turn 2. At Cascades, it'll be the white flag this time by Sean Roberts, and Turner going at it for P2.
2.2 miles left to decide P2. Some would call it fate. Some would call it luck. Let's see who's going to have it right now. As it stands, Sean Roberts, he has a lot of momentum, and he looks very aggressive. He's going to have to pick the outside line for Cascades. A big squeeze from Turner as he's going to give him just enough racing room and no more. Manages to defend the position again. A great defense so far from Turner. Cars off in the background as Jesse Laverin's going to be struggling a bit, but now into the hairpin, the inside again defended by Bronson Turner. Sean Roberts trying to take the long way around. Not
Bogman
going
trying
to
to
work
make that
out.
stick on Sierra.
Can he do it? Let's see. Down to the final few corners now. We're running out of racetrack. 1 mile left nearly. And as we go into the braking zone, Sean Roberts a little too far behind, not able to make a move. As well, Max Bowman, 0.4 back, just out of reach for the young gun. Now, as we get ready, just a few more corners left. It's Edwin Onifrey, by the way, leading this race, as we haven't mentioned, but he will be crossing the line very shortly. half opportunity left for Sean Roberts. But let's see, as Edwin Onofre has cruised his way to victory, both in race 1 and race 2, he is dominant tonight for the Plaid Machine, the 199-year race winner for the Team America Talent Scout event, round 6. Now behind Sean Roberts, can he do it? Bronson Turner has his foot to the metal. The momentum's in the favor of Roberts. It's going to be a photo finish, and Roberts is not able to do it. Turner takes the second.
Oh my goodness. And another good one further back. Sierra just able to fend off Bogman for a couple corners there. So that'll be 4th and 5th as well. You look at why you do sim racing, and it's the ethical wheel, the close battles you have from flag to flag. And it got a little bit dicey at times, but oh my goodness, maybe one of the best battles we've had in season 2 of the Team America TSCs, because Bronson Turner and Sean Roberts putting on an absolute clinic in the ethical wheel.
That was some racing. And Sean Roberts, again, tip my hat to him. He gave it everything he had there, lap after lap after lap. And if you ask me, I think Sean Roberts probably had the pace. He was a little bit quicker, but Bronson just had the defense of a lion, and you could not thwart that man. I think this is Bronson's probably best result. No, I mean, did he take the overall? I'll have to check my notes on that one, but this certainly being a very, very great result for somebody who's taken part in almost every single Team America Talent Scout event so far.
No, absolutely. And again, just the consistency of going day in, day out. And the guy who's certainly put in the work, we've seen it on socials, finally gets rewarded with a very solid result here.
He does. And now, one moment here, folks. Of course, anyone watching over on Esports Edge, we are going to be taking just a quick 2-minute break, but don't go anywhere. We will be back very, very shortly. And for everybody on all the other platforms, we'll be here the whole time. Now, as we talk about it, yes, Sean Roberts, Bronson Turner. Let's talk about Bronson a little bit here as well. You know what? Scratch that. Let's talk about Edwin, our race winner, as of course he has won both of the races here tonight. And on top of that, again, had such a great result at Road America in the last event. So Edwin Onofre kind of becoming one of the new hot prospects out on the grid, I would say.
Definitely likes this car. And again, what I saw from him is just the adaptability of knowing what was the right choice for race number 1 and sticking with it, even when it seemed like at the start it wasn't right to stay on the wets. And crucially was able to break away. And then in race number 2, still had the pace on the dries, and even with some of the seasoned veterans with Turner, Roberts, Sierra breathing down his neck, was able to keep his head down and build that gap.
And by the way, folks, don't go anywhere. We are going to be rounding up our top 3 drivers to have a little bit of a chat with them. And the official, unofficial results are, in fact, in. Your P1 winner tonight is, yes, you guessed it, Edwin Onofre, without any contention. 2nd place going to be Sierra. 3rd place will be Robert. So despite the fact that Javier Sierra didn't have the best race 2 necessarily, now he still did finish in 4th, of course, a few trials and tribulations, though, in race 2, he is going to still finish on that overall podium. And seeing now very, very shortly here, I think we are going to be, again, hearing from our drivers. I think starting with, it looks like potentially our race winner here, but again, we'll be hearing from them in a moment. So for those watching at home, a massive shout out to each and every one of you, whether you're watching on Esports Edge, whether you're watching live on YouTube, whichever YouTube channel you're watching, hit that thumbs up button, hit that like button, leave the comment, and get involved here at Init Esports. Head on over to initesports.gg and find our Discord. Here, though, are the race results for race 2, as Edwin Onofre dominant. A 17-second victory in race 1, a 13-second victory in race 2, but a different podium all the way around. Bronson Turner comes home in 2nd in race 2 with a photo finish with Sean Roberts. 3rd or 4th place going to Javier Sierra. Max Bowman coming home in 5th, with Jesse Laveran in 6th once again. Lewis Holloway, a great drive from the Camber and Caster team, I have to say, down in 7th, with Jason Willett in 8th, Morgan Stringer in 9th, and Justin Wilmings with an unfortunate disconnect in race 1 and an unfortunate collision in race 2. But regardless of all of that, still a great drive from Justin Wilmings.
Yeah, tip of the cap as well to Javier Sierra. Phenomenal drive. Obviously, probably wasn't thrilled with the way some of his companions were driving him for the podium, but didn't let the frustrations get to him. Was able to make some really, really good, really clean moves out on track. I don't think he got on the podium for race 1 either, but still, I think was, with all things kind of netted out, 5 or 6 positions gained after being sent to the back of the field.
Yeah, it's all in all a day of damage control, I think you could say, and it was done quite well. All in all, I don't think Edwin Onofre was going to be beat today. I think he just had the pace over everybody at the end of the day. I think it showed it lap after lap. He didn't have the fastest lap in race 1. That goes to Jesse Laverin. Credit where credit's due there, in the wet conditions as well, or interchanging conditions, I should say. But once the track dried out, it was all Edwin all the time, except for at the start. So I am interested. We will be hearing from him shortly. I'm very curious how shaky he was at the very beginning, because that entire lap 1, the 2 drivers were side by side.
I think it's just having faith in your pace, and even if, there was that full overlap and he got a car ahead, as long as it's hard to say, Mike, because with how close the parity is car to car in these kinds of series, whether it's MX5s, the 86s, even the open wheel stuff with the F1600s, it feels like there's no such thing as a single car overtake. The minute you get a car offline, you want to fill that gap. We saw that halfway through with Sierra coming out of the final corner, why we had that multi-car collection with Wilming and Sierra. But I'm not sure. It's so hard to say, and obviously we'll never know because no one was able to make that move stick on the 199. But if he was a couple of positions back, I still think it would be smart of us to assume that the 199 would have found a way to get himself back to the sharp end.
Yeah, and I think even with a wrong tire choice, it would have still been a great result at the end of the day. A really awesome drive all the way through and through. I think we are ready to roll, though, with our interviews, and we are going to, in fact, start with our race winner, Edwin Onofre, who's going to be joining us here very, very shortly as we get him in here and we can get him up on the screen. So, Edwin, there he is. Long time no see, as he is back on the podium here for Team America. This time, first place all the way around. Dominant in race 1, 17 seconds. Dominant in race 2, at least in the second half. But why don't we talk about race 2 here for a second? Because race 1, a little trivia. Race 2, walk us through that start.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. It was scary because it was even in the playing field a little bit, so I had to just take it nice and easy. Of course, the track was completely dry, although there were some patches of water that I wanted to try to take a look out for, because even though the track condition did say that was completely dry, I know that during practice, during the warm-up transition, there were some areas that didn't have the full grip, so I think we had to go out for a few laps before we can lay out the rubber, and then we can take the full dry racing line. But yeah, that was a little bit scary because I just wasn't sure if I was going to get the IPOM or not, but other than that, it made for a pretty fun race. There was a bit of a scary incident happening around the first 2 laps when I was racing against Javi Sierra. I don't know what happened. I was trying to look in the mirror to see what exactly happened, but I was able to get away from the incident, whatever took place. And then the gap started getting bigger and bigger, and I was just I was like, okay, I might as well go ahead and cruise around. I know for a fact that in the broadcast that there was more action happening back there. It's true what they say. It's lonely at the top. I have to say that. But I mean, I don't blame any of that. But I am pretty happy about my performance today, especially when there was a transition between the wet race and the dry race. I don't do a lot of GR86 racing, but yeah, there was a lot of things I had to learn about, and it made for a pretty fun while I went ahead and kept it consistent with my pace.
Yeah, and speaking, as you mentioned, in race 2 there, with that little collision that happened behind, it was, of course, due to P1 or P2 and P3 having a little bit of scrapping, and maybe some room was left, maybe some room wasn't left. Of course, that'll be down to the stewards to decide. But in race 1, you mentioned as well, yes, the interchanging conditions is that we talked about on the broadcast is probably the most difficult conditions to drive in, all in all. Being it super wet, you can kind of predict everything is wet. But as you mentioned, some corners are dry, some corners have a puddle in them, and some corners are just, you never know what's going to happen. Why don't you talk us through kind of what that's like as a driver and try to figure that out?
Well, general rule is that when it comes to wet racing, the general rule, the golden rule, is that you should mostly take the outside line, the opposite of the racing line. It sounds counterintuitive, but because there's a lot of rubber laid down, once it gets wet, it gets very slippery. So you go ahead and stick to the outside areas or a little bit further out than expected, because that's where the most grip is at. And for this race that we had a lot of rain during practice and then it started to dry out, you can kind of get the idea of where you can find the most grip. And then as the race progressed, there was a dry line developing. Now, again, it was getting dry first on the outside instead of the inside line, but that's where other people started to go ahead and getting closer and closer to either the apex or the inside line, and that's where we got a little bit faster and faster. But at the same time, because we are driving front engine rear wheel drive, all the powers derive into the back tires, so it gets less grip as the race progresses. If you are abusive with the throttle, if you're not nice and smooth with it, you'll be burning the rears a lot more than you realize. And in wet weather races, that is the case. So that's why maybe some will be asking, why am I feeling oversteer? That might be the case. It's either because you're going too fast into the corner that the rear tires are not gripped up, or because you might have found a puddle that you never realized until then. But yes, it was kind of hard, but at the same time, I love doing a lot of rain racing. I don't actually do the series, but I have an idea of it, and then that's why I was just taking it nice and easy, but at the same time went faster and faster. So that made for a fun race right there too.
It was certainly fun to watch as well. And as a Pacific Northwester, I also love the wet weather conditions. It's just in my nature. But before we do move on here tonight, Edwin, I could talk with you for hours about this. Is there anybody you would like to thank for your podium and your P1 finish here tonight for the Team America Talent Scout Race 6?
So shout out to first of you guys in the esports. Thank you for having me here. Always a pleasure to be racing a part of the series, and as well as for the Team America USA Scout Talent broadcast and program. A second thing is Tech Sport Racing. We have done a pretty good series of finishes in Watkins Glen for the Mustang series. Devin Anderson did both races, both maiden finishes. We're trying, but he got actually a little bit of practice on iRacing with us, with the esports team, to try to figure out what is the lines to take. And I think that really helped out. Otherwise, we would have not finished podium. So shout out to Tech Sport Racing and the Tech Sport Sim team. You can check us out on our Instagram. And shout out to all the people who are watching this broadcast, and shout out to all the people who are supporting me either on Twitch, on my social medias like Instagram, or on my YouTube and my Discord too. And then last but not least, to my family, to my coworkers, and probably to my new job that I'm not gonna say what it is just yet, but I'm pretty happy to be excited of it because training happens this Wednesday, and I will be there for it. But once the place opens up, I'll share what is up. You guys can see my Instagram for that. Okay. But other than that, thank you so much for having me here. Y'all have a good day. And I'm about to go ahead and see the Mexico versus England match right now.
There we go. Yes, indeed, in my home city. So Edwin Onfrey, again, your P1 victor here for tonight. Have a great rest of your evening and enjoy the champagne. Now, as we get ready here to hear from our P2 finisher, Jackson, that of course being Edwin Onofrey, always grateful and always again talking about his community and everything that goes on with it. So community driven. I just absolutely love to hear that because that is really what we are about here at Init Esports, is building an amazing community on Discord and online with all different members and all different walks of life. But on top of that, just getting together and having your friends to sim race with, having your friends, your family, and everybody support you as well during the broadcast. So grateful to have him along with us for Team America.
What's awesome about grassroots sim racing, right? One guy can bring in 3 or 4. That's what we see with the Camber and Caster guys out in San Diego. We've seen it with Michael Janney and a lot of the precision racing development guys. It is a contest, right? But just as much of it, it's a Sunday afternoon and you just want to go out and race and have fun with your buddies. And then wouldn't know for the very example of just coming out and doing the work and obviously trying to make a name for himself, but also never not smiling, always having a good time. Class act for Team America.
Can't wait to see him and all of our other, we haven't had him and with the other big hitters quite on the track just yet, so we need to see the Battle of the Titans once more. But that of course might be in the next season. Don't go anywhere, folks. Of course that will be around the corner. More information in the Discord when that does come out. But I think we are ready to hear from our P2 finisher here. I think we're getting ready to as we will wrap up, and I think Jackson, you've had time to catch up with them.
Let's hear from him. Sean Roberts in the 333 had a troublesome race to get things started and had to drive from the sharp end of the field. But man, a phenomenal race number 2 going at it with Bronson Turner. My friend, talk to me about that drive. Uh-oh.
We will get the audio sorted
Yeah,
very,
Sean, I'm not
very
sure
shortly.
if we can hear you, good sir.
You guys got me?
Oh,
There
yeah,
he
there we
is.
go. Gotta get
I'm not
push
used
to
to-
talk on.
I'm not used to doing the push to talk. I'm just used to just speaking. My bad. No, the race, that second race was absolutely nuts. That start was crazy. But I was pulling on Bronson through the first half, and then I hit the tire barrier in turn 6 and damaged the car. So as he was catching me, I had to basically relearn how to drive it and try to hold him off.
Let's talk about just overall coexisting with Bronson there in the last couple of laps. Both you guys had to make big moves. He was up 5 positions. You made that mistake and had to recover from that. It was kind of you two chopping up the field in the second half. What's the level of respect that it takes to kind of go wheel to wheel for 3-4 laps on end there?
It definitely takes a lot of trust, knowing that you can lean on a guy and he won't like retaliate as more roughly, I guess it would be the word. I tried to be as best with him as I could, especially later in the race. I was actually risking a drive-through if I had a significant incident with him, so I was definitely on the wrong side of incident point. So that was just trying to make that move and not have any significant impact with him.
So another phenomenal drive for you. And since we've got you here on the podium, who made it possible for you this weekend?
I have to give a big shout out to crew chief Eric over at Grand Touring Motorsports. You know, he recommended me over for this league. I've been here since race 1 when we raced the GT3s over at Sebring. The admins, they've been putting on a good schedule. It hasn't worked out for me that I've been able to do all these races, but I'm doing what I can. Of course, you guys in the broadcast, great broadcast every time. I catch them every single time, even if I'm not participating. Lots of fun. I just, great group of guys in this league. I got to shout out to them too. I mean, if we didn't have good drivers, we wouldn't have good racing like this.
Congratulations. That's your P3 sitter, Sean Roberts.
And that, folks, is going to do it for tonight. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be hearing from our P2 finisher, Javier Sierra. So we are going to wrap it up here for this one. Again, a massive successful event, and a massive thank you to everybody that did join us for this one, and of course for all of the other ones as we've talked about. Sean Roberts, yes, an absolute veteran to the series, and there are a few drivers out there, you know who you are if you're one of them, has been around literally since the start of all of this, and we thank you tremendously. And again, those are the drivers that we're looking for when it comes to it, the dedication, being there time after time, and whether or not you're able to make it every time, that's beside the point. It's when you can and you show up and you give it your all. Now though, Jackson, any highlights, anything that we would like to wrap up? My personal, let me think here. As we get to wrap up, I think obviously race 1 being the interchanging conditions, I think is the MVP for me. That was allowing the excitement for the drivers to kind of have, struggles with themselves. And we've seen that time and time again with these wet conditions in Team America. It catches people out. Race 2, very dramatic. We had the contact that happened, of course, in the front with our top 3 runners, and then the results that went afterwards. It's all in all, there's a lot to break down for this one, Jackson, but I think that's what I have. What do you have for your top highlights here tonight?
A lot of drivers who maybe had pace who didn't get the opportunity to show it. I think Justin Wilming, it was just, he could have been on the podium, I think, both races, and obviously connection issues put him out of the podium for race number 1 when he was running P3. You look as well for some really strong running in race number 2, was trying to make some moves, got knocked out. I think, Jesse Laverin looked really strong in the wets, purple laps, and then maybe got swamped down with some traffic. So a lot of deserving names on the podium for both race 1 and 2, but you've got a lot of really strong guys that are going to look to come back with a fighting chance here when we get to TSC number 7 later on next month.
Yes. Yes, indeed. And of course, that calendar on the horizons. If you are interested, you can scan that QR code that'll be popping up in a little bit, or you can head on over to our website, inadesports.gg/carsim, and you can find a link to our Discord right on the top, or just look up Init Esports, and you will be able to find all of our information. And of course, all of our information on our other championships that we run as well, of course, with Team America, as I just mentioned, Screen to Speed, and so many others. But I think for the future, Jackson, of course, with the next event that we have coming up on the calendar being Screen to Speed, why don't we talk just briefly about what we expect from the Ray FF 1600s at what isn't Oulton Park, but Oulton Park, because of course that's different. Why wouldn't we want to name tracks similarly to each other and make things confusing? But that is going to be our next one. So we have a little bit of a different car, of course, than previous, where we were in the GR86s. We get to head to the Formula style cars this time.
And that basically means you can go wheel to wheel, but you definitely can't lean on each other the same way you can in these 8.6s. But in how it's very similar in terms of how the track drives, very tight, technical, high elevation. We'll call it World Cup soccer because of the timing, but I think it seems fitting. It's always a high defense, very limited times for opportunities on track to actually make those moves stick, especially at the full Grand Prix layout of OPR. So going to be something to really, really look out for. Even no matter the grid size, it's going to be definitely either a dogfight or definitely a duel out at front. Not something you're going to want to miss.
No, 100%. And on top of that, of course, with the new Screen to Speed calendar that we're going to be releasing very shortly as well, we have a different format than the previous. We are actually having a championship this time around. So if you are interested, you can scan that QR code or head on over to screentospeed.com. Again, this is our all women's championship, and we are going to be having, yes, a championship. In the first part, we're going to be having the GR86s as well as, of course, the Formula cars, and they're going to be two separate 4-round championships, but at the end, we're going to be totaling up all of the points from both of them and determining a winner overall, as well as a winner from each split. So there will be 3 winners total. It's going to be an absolute grand time. Again, our all-women's championship growing every single time. You have to get involved if you haven't, and even if you have, and get back out on the grid, because we love to see the returning drivers. Now, we also, of course, have our NASCAR League that is coming up. Yes, indeed. Again, another points championship. This is going to be round 1 starting at Daytona. We will be following the later half of the Truck Series calendar, so every race that you see is going to be the format that they're running in real life. 100 laps at Daytona, followed up by Charlotte, 167 laps. That's going to be 3 pit stops at least. It is going to be an eventful one. We have loads of drivers, lots of clean racing, and all the way around a ton of fun. And on top of that, October 24th, we have Watkins Glen. We get to turn right as well as left, not just the classic left. So we get to see a whole load of variety, and again, this being all here at Init Esports, hosted on inadesports.gg. Also, we have a couple other races coming up in the future when it comes to, of course, Team America, like we mentioned, but we will be bringing that up in the Discord. So if you are interested, head on into the Discord and get involved, because that is where all relevant information is going to be posted, and that will be available on our website as well. A massive thank you as well to making everybody who makes these events possible, starting off with, of course, our title sponsor, Regadget. You can head on over to their website, regadget.com, or shop.regadget.com, scan that QR code for the easy travels, and you can find yourself with some incredibly affordable deals. Again, $1,500 for the typical price range for the Performance Plus bundles. The Phoenix as well, of course, being a 80 frames per second on different Epic games for Fortnite, 150 for Rocket League. It is a absolute beast. You have a 3060 with 1 terabyte, so on and so forth. Again, all that information on their website, and on top of that, you can use code INIT to find yourself getting even more of a discount. And on top of that, they offer amazing customer support, always responsive and always willing to help. Going over again, shop.regadget.com. That, though, is going to do it for us here tonight. Again, a massive thank you to everybody behind the scenes that made these events possible, as well as, of course, the drivers. We have our producer behind us that you can't hear, but we can, Mr. Tom Bryant, who is speaking to us from AK Esports UK. On top of that, of course, a massive shout out to all of the Esports Edge crew that's behind the scenes, working hard to bring the pictures out to you, and the eClutch team as well. Also, of course, massive shout out to iRacing for allowing us on the platform to race the events that we do. And on top of that, of course, go on, join Init Esports in the Discord. Now, Jackson, that's all I have for tonight. Is there anything that you'd like to add before we wrap this one up?
We always predict what the format's going to be like, what the racing's always going to be like, Mike, but every time we do the Team America TSEs, never a bad show. Cannot wait for the next one.
Absolutely. And on that note, folks, again, get involved with the Discord. Scan that QR code that you'll see on your screen in a little bit. We are going to call this one, though, here for the night. I hope absolutely everybody has a lovely evening, afternoon, or morning, wherever you are in this fine world. We'll be back next time for Screen to Speed. Thank you, and good night.
The Speed. The Fight. You're on your own. Not anymore with Init Esports.